The debt and deficits are not inventions of ideology. They are facts of arithmetic. The quicksand of compound interest is real. That was former Finance Minister Paul Martin when he released his budget in 1995. And the quicksand of compound interest is tugging Canada's finances under. Interest charges on the federal credit card will cost taxpayers more than $46 billion this year. That's almost $4 billion a month that can't go to improve services or lower taxes because it's going to the bond fund managers on Bay Street just to service the government's debt. And it's also a cost of more than $1,000 for each and every Canadian this year. And it's getting worse. Interest charges next year will surpass the federal healthcare transfers to the provinces. In a handful of years, interest charges on the debt will reach $61 billion. Now, what does $61 billion mean to you? Well, $61 billion is the same amount that the federal government will collect through its GST in 2028. So in a few short years, when you pay GST on a hockey stick or on the gas that you put in your car or just for a bar of soap, every penny paid through the GST will go to cover the interest charges on the federal debt. So here's a question. What could we do if it weren't for that big ballooning federal debt tab? Well, we could virtually double healthcare spending at the federal level. Or we could completely eliminate the GST in a few years. And while your tax dollars are being sucked away to pay interest charges on the federal credit card, Trudeau and his finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, seem to be living in a fairy tale. In her March budget, Freeland said the government would cut $15 billion or find $15 billion in savings. But this year, the federal government is increasing spending by $15 billion. More for them, less for you. Next year, the feds will increase spending again by $30 billion. Now, pro tip for Freeland, when you increase spending by billions of dollars every year, you're saving money wrong. Freeland now claims her deficits are, quote, modest. Where have you heard that before? Well, back in 2015, when Trudeau was first running to become Prime Minister, he promised to run a few modest deficits of less than $10 billion a year, and then balance the books in 2019. Well, he blew through that balanced budget promise and ran a $20 billion deficit in 2019. Now Freeland's deficits are about $40 billion, 4 times larger than the modest deficits Trudeau initially ran on. But here's the craziest part of all this. Listen to what Trudeau has to say.
We have been so fiscally responsible.
That's how dumb he thinks you are. He thinks he can repeat a talking point a couple of times and you'll nod and clap along. But there's nothing fiscally responsible about his government. He spent $61,000 on Manhattan hotel rooms during a 2-day anti-poverty summit. He stayed in a $6,000 per night luxury hotel room and then tried to cover it up. His vacations are costing you, dear taxpayer, almost $700,000 this year alone. He's added 98,000 bureaucrats and handed out $1 billion in bonuses. Him and every other MP have taken a pay raise every single year, regardless of the struggles you and their constituents face. His Governor General spent $71,000 on limos in Iceland, almost $100,000 on airplane food, and almost $3 million in her first year of travel. His finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, couldn't figure out where Glasgow was on a map, stayed in the wrong city, then billed taxpayers thousands of dollars on a luxury chauffeur service. He gives billions of dollars to anyone and their dog who says they can build a battery plant. He even gave Loblaws about $12 million to buy some new fridges. Lots of bad news here, folks, but there is some good news. It would only take a modest amount of spending restraint from a serious government to balance the budget. In fact, the government could balance the books next year just by sticking to the spending plan that Trudeau announced just 2 years ago. Did you hear that, folks? Balance the budget next year by just spending what Trudeau said he would spend 2 years ago. That would be a good start, and the path is certainly clear. Put down the credit card and pick up some scissors.